Welcome back into CBS Sports HQ. It has been a huge turnaround season for the Penn State Nittany Lions, taking on Purdue this weekend. Yes, these records are very opposite. Penn State sitting at 8-1, Purdue sitting at 1-8. But back to Penn State, when you take a look at the numbers from last season to this season, even Drew Aller, their quarterback, last season his completion percentage just under 60%, sitting 86th in FBS. This weekend it is over 70%. That is good for 8. Those are the numbers you are seeing right now across the board for Penn State, and they look to do more of the same this upcoming weekend. Let's welcome in Gary Danielson, who will be on the call along with Brad Nessler and our very good friend Ginny Dell. Let's talk about Penn State here, sitting at 8-1. Again, look, they're taking on Purdue, who's at 1-8 right now, but they don't call them the spoiler makers for nothing. That said, Gary, if Penn State can hold it together and not overlook this game, where can they improve to further themselves in this season?
I just keep thinking that Penn State has to look, that it's a 3-game set here. They've been telling everybody for years in, years out that, we've beaten everybody but Michigan and Ohio State. Well, now they have the chance to prove that they're good enough to get into the playoffs. In front of them are 3 teams that if Penn State plays their brand of football, they're good enough to beat these football teams. If any of them, Minnesota, Purdue, or I think it's Maryland the last game, if they lose to all 3 of them, Purdue, will need help. Minnesota will need help. Maryland will need help. And I think if Penn State just sticks to their fundamentals, do the things that they do over and over again, they'll enter that playoff with a home game, and they'll get the opportunity to kind of erase many, many years of frustration of being just not quite good enough to make it into the Final Four.
When it comes to Purdue, I mean, there's trap games. It's not necessarily a trap game, but this is a game you can't overlook. Is there anything they need to be wary of?
I just think of not letting the crowd get lit, not helping Purdue, an early turnover. Purdue's had trouble getting off in the first quarter and getting their points early. They played Ohio State mildly tough on the road. It was a 14-0 game. Purdue was in the red zone, almost 30, 35-yard line. They went for it on 4th down, didn't make it, and then the game just kind of gave it away. I mean, this is not a team with 0 talent, and you're right. To come up with a big game, put the pressure on Penn State, get the crowd into it, and save their season. Well, that isn't even right. They're not going to save their season, but they're going to accomplish something that they can finish off the way that their Purdue fans could be proud of them. Because, the last game I did, and I'm a Purdue Boiler myself, that was tough watching that game. 66-7 is the way it ended up. All year, they've never been able to get it back. If they could get 2 overtime losses, if they could come out and play a tough game against Penn State and find a way to make it in the 4th quarter, I guess we never know, right?
Yeah, look, we've seen these upsets before. They can happen to any team, any given day. You mentioned the remaining schedule for Penn State. They have Purdue, Minnesota, and Maryland. And you said, look, just keep what you're doing. You're going to make it into the playoff. This playoff is new for all of us, expanded playoff. Right. We're looking at all the numbers. We're doing all the math. How do they get in? How could they fall out? If Penn State doesn't make it to the title game and win that, do they have to win these 3 remaining games in order to solidify a spot? Can they afford to lose one of them?
I don't think they can. They would have 2 losses, but their schedule just isn't there. Right now, Penn State really doesn't have a great win. I'm looking, was it the game we did, coming back and beating USC, Michigan? They didn't get to play Michigan. I mean, they really don't have one of those big wins. Maybe West Virginia early in the year, but I think they need to finish off with just 1 loss and be one of the representatives. Barring major upsets here, and that would be major, I don't think they're going to get into the Big Ten championship game, but that's not the worst thing. I think that if they just do their job, play their brand of football, they'll get a home playoff game right there in Penn State, Happy Valley. And I think that would be so good for the Penn State fans, for the Big Ten, to get Penn State playing at home. Can you imagine, somebody like, Tennessee or Alabama or Ole Miss coming up there to play and be against Penn State with the cold and the snow? That would be quite a thrill for Penn State fans.
Staying in the Big Ten, this is a team you've been able to see in person now. Oregon just 2 wins away from an undefeated season. Their last two teams are Wisconsin and Washington. Let's say everything goes according to plan. Well, first of all, do you think they can go undefeated? And then how do you assess this Oregon team and how much noise they could make in this playoff?
Yeah, man, that'd be a huge upset for them not to go undefeated. They're a superior team to Wisconsin now. You know, going into Wisconsin is never easy to play there. They're a tough, prideful program, but this Oregon team is supremely talented, veteran players, a great, motivated coach, defensive line, offensive line. They're a well-rounded team. I think when they get into the Big Ten championship game, obviously if it's against Ohio State, that game could go either way. But here's how I look at it. The winner of that game obviously will get either, probably if it's Oregon, they'll get the #1 seed and a bye. If it's Ohio State, they'll be in the top 4 and get a bye. But the loser of that game, whether it's Oregon or Ohio State, I think is going to be the #5 seed, and we'll get a home playoff game. So, Oregon has really no excuses here. They have the best team. They're fairly healthy. They've got depth and strength in both offense and defensive lines. They should finish this thing off undefeated. Now, beating Ohio State again in that championship game, that's no, easy layup, but they should get there undefeated.
Gary, we're going to leave the Big Ten for a second. We're going to jump over to the SEC. We got to talk about the Georgia Bulldogs hosting Tennessee. Yes, they are a 9.5-point favorite, I believe, in this game, but this is their college football playoff hopes are on the line.
Right.
This is a text from my best friend, Michelle, when they played Ole Miss. I feel a comeback, and then a couple minutes later, or we're just going to lose to Ole Miss like a bunch of idiots. So which is it going to be? Are they going to lose to Tennessee, or do you think they can win and keep their playoff hopes alive?
Amanda, I did that SEC for 18 years. That's probably one of the nicest texts you could read from a Georgia fan during a game like that. Believe me, there's a lot of them that are worse than that. So she at least hung with the football team. The surprising thing about this Georgia team, listen, first of all, they've had a really tough schedule playing, at Texas, and the games they've played at Ole Miss, at Alabama. They've had the toughest schedule, but 3 losses. I don't think they're going to get in with 3 losses, even though they might be one of the top 12 teams. I just might not work out. The surprising thing for me is they've been out physical lately. Yes, Carson Beck's been struggling, 12 interceptions lately in the last 6 games, but it's been the physical play of the Georgia offensive line. I'm shocked the way Ole Miss has rebuilt the team and handled them. I get it, was on the road. It's not that Ole Miss beat them, with a passing game or Lane Kiffin trickery. It was the fact that they seemed to out-muscle them, out-fundamental them, and that's going to be the thing. I mean, Tennessee plays a lot like Ole Miss, and their defensive line is just about as good as Ole Miss, so this will be a real struggle. It's hard to go against, the talent that Georgia has, especially. And I'll be surprised if they can't run the ball better and do a better job. But they do have to win.
Gary, we appreciate it. Have a great call this weekend. Good luck to your Boilermakers. I know they'll definitely need it. CBS Sports HQ College Football. We've got coverage, our pregame there, starting Saturdays. Look, get up early, get your cup of coffee. If you don't drink coffee, I don't know what's wrong with you. Get some tea, I guess. 9 Eastern right here on HQ.